Hi, and welcome to Mediation Works. This is a special edition because we're doing a special segment for ConRes Week, Conflict Resolution Week, which the theme this year is There's Another Story to Tell. And basically, it's supposed to be highlighting the benefits of remaining open and curious to new perspectives as part of resolving conflict. And what we had in mind is what's been important. I'm Wendy Lakusta. I'm here with four other mediators and colleagues of mine that I've worked with for a lot of years: Sharon, Sutherland, Gordon White, Julie Daum, and Richard Singer. And we all work together in many formal, informal, creative, business-like kind of ways over the years. We've shared our experiences, and we have So looking behind the scenes in terms of what we've learned from each other over the years in different ways, that's what we want to talk about in this segment. And I'm going to turn first to Gordon. You can't see Gordon's face because he's actually in Croatia and joining us by a teleconference, which is wonderful. Thanks for taking your vacation time to join us, Gordon. If you'd like to lead off and talk a little bit about how, as professionals, we've all learned from each other over the years.
Mm-hmm. So I think I'll speak to one specific area. I think that when you're mediating, one of the things that you're doing is you're using your subjectivity as a tool, mm-hmm. and the subjectivity is not something that you can get out of. And so I'm referring to things like, getting triggered by some of your own past experience while you're mediating and maybe not knowing exactly what has happened. Mm-hmm. I think it's really helpful to have a colleague that you can talk to about your subjective experiences during the work. So I think for me, that's been one of the most valuable connections I've had with my peers in the course of mediating. And I also think in terms of looking for someone that I would like to work with, I would want to feel comfortable being vulnerable and open with someone about those kind of experiences. And I would look for someone who has reflective strength, I guess, the capacity to provide me good feedback in that area and be a mirror for me. Mm-hmm. So it isn't just kind of professional skill, it's a certain, I suppose, personality profile that I'm looking for as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's an element of trust.
Yeah, well, that's certainly an element of that kind of relationship. But I could have a trusting relationship with someone who doesn't have those qualities that I've spoken to. So it's something in addition to trust. It's mm-hmm. certain proclivities, I guess, right?
I know for me, I've never really co-mediated or peer-mediated per se, but I have had the benefit and the luxury of working with a lot of experienced mediators and knowing a lot of experienced mediators and working as mentors together and being able to attend meetings, whether they're formal meetings or less formal meetings, and people are able to share, some of the things that happen to them on various cases that they're working on and how they handled themselves or what were the dynamics and what they found useful and effective in dealing with certain situations. And I learned from that, and I find that has value to me, as a mediator, being able to hear from other mediators what they do and how they do it, and without being together in the same room, I still get something from that, and that's one of the things that I like about being able to connect with my peers. And of course, when we're looking at peers, and learning from each other as peers, just being able to go to meetings, going to conferences together, doing training together, attending training together. These are all great opportunities where you can learn from each other, and it is beneficial to us as mediators in our growth and development.
Yeah, mediators love to share war stories.
Yeah, although I would say that when Gordon's talking about that ability to give some feedback and stuff, that's what I would agree with you, Gordon. That's kind of what I'm looking for somebody that I'm working with as a peer, somebody who I have the trust, as Wendy said, but also I respect their ability to give me feedback and to call me on things, to point out where maybe I am doing something just automatically. I've done this kind of thing so many times, or I'm convinced that this is how I'm interrelating with people, and to be asked questions about. Really? Okay, so did you feel like you needed to go that way, or were you just kind of going there automatically? Were there other things you might have done? I would say Gordon's somebody who actually, by listening to him talk about other kinds of things and the way he investigates and thinks through different types of mediation processes and integrates other ideas into it. Gordon, you very frequently challenged me to think about questions that I ask or the ways that I ask them, simply by putting it out there, whether it's personally, directly when we're having conversations, when you're doing a presentation, and even just through your blog. I find that's actually really, really pushes me to say, that's a different idea. I should take that into account. I mean, I would say Julie's kind of another person who I have worked with in a mediation, co-mediated with, and had enormous learning from just taking a slightly different approach than what I was doing and making me stop and think, oh, I was making an assumption. My assumption might come from my background because I have legal training. I entered this thinking these things. I was skipping over this other aspect of what was happening for somebody else in the room. And Julie, I mean, I completely trust Julie, or I wouldn't put myself in the room to be co-mediating with her. But what I really appreciate is her ability to talk me through how I got to the assumption I was in and make me recognize that it was an assumption of that things needed to run in a certain way. She's pushed me to change my models a lot and my approaches and to be much more flexible, which I really appreciate. I kind of say the same thing about Richard and Wendy, but I'm not going to go into all that.
No, but that's the kind of thing that I was talking about, previously, like in being able to share experiences and listen to other people talk about their war stories, so to speak. And you get different perspectives that challenge you and make you think, oh, yeah, that's a great way. That's a great approach.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've taken this in a different direction, but I know one of the things that I think that Wendy was talking about was, okay, well, how do you establish if you're going to try to hook up with somebody in a peer co-mediator relationship, what are some of the things that you look for? And I just wanted to highlight a couple things, and others might have suggestions as well along those lines. But obviously, when you're thinking, okay, I'd like to co-mediate, who do I co-mediate with? And a lot of it, of course, is who you run into, but it's also a compatibility level. Does this person, do you, and it's an intuitive thing. Do you feel good about being with this person, and do you trust them, and are you open to feedback from them? And there's also other variables that you look at. One might be, hey, there's certain mediations that really benefit by having a male-female balance, right? Especially in family mediation, where because of those dynamics, it's good to play off each other in that way. Or it might be somebody who's really good on the empathy scale and the empathy side of things, and someone else who's really good on the number side of things, and that makes for a good combination. And other people may have suggestions along those lines, so I'll stop here.
Yeah. So, Julie, what are your thoughts?
I like what Richard is saying, because for me, developing a relationship is the most important thing in it, and helping me define it in that way. And sometimes they become like personal relationships, like friendships, and sometimes it's very much sort of just strictly business. But that ability to trust and to be vulnerable, as Gordon and Richard mentioned, is really important. And what I look for is compatibility and diversity, somebody who's had completely different experiences from me. And I was lucky enough to be in a formal co-mediation pilot project, and was able to mediate with some other mediators who I wouldn't have had a chance to mediate with, and had really wonderful experiences where we were really given the time and space to explore how each other approach situations and then put it into practice on the ground. So that's been really helpful. One of the other things that's been really fun as well is learning from each other in outside of sort of formal mediation settings, doing other kinds of projects and maybe even fun things together, and putting together either training or just working on something completely fun and not related to mediation work has really helped me learn just about a bunch of other things.
Right. Yeah. Sort of expanding our boundaries. And Sharon, you're the kingpin around that one. To you.
Well, I'm going to agree with Julia. It's I find that the more ways that you can engage with other mediators, the better, because you learn in the way that they engage with other parts of the world, not just what they do as mediators. So, I mean, I think Wendy's probably referring to things like participating in game jams and creating collaborative games and being in international scavenger hunts with mediation teams. All those kinds of things that are really quite separate from mediation in some ways, but you get to talk about the way that people negotiate, the way that people work together in any of those kinds of things. And it's actually a fabulous way to build trust, rapport, create relationships where you have a good sense of what somebody's going to be like in a mediation, and you can learn a ton of stuff from it. I do want to kind of just say one thing on a little bit of a different topic. Just one of the things I kind of wanted to emphasize in this talk is the degree to which you don't have to be a really experienced mediator for this to be beneficial. We're all really quite experienced mediators now, and we're talking about having spent years. I mean, Wendy and Richard, I met when the practicum started in '98, and we've worked together since then in so many different ways. That's been fantastic. But you get similar benefits working with somebody who's at the same learning level as you if you're a new mediator too. All of these kinds of relationship building things, all of these ways that you learn from each other, if you're open and aware, working with somebody who's not much more experienced than you or not at all more experienced than you, can be really beneficial. I find working with students, I learn just as much, even when it is a specific mentor-student relationship, that I learn a huge amount in the same kind of way. But you can really support each other as two relatively junior people starting out, saying, hey, you know what, we've got different skill sets. Let's see how we can work together and build each other's skills and support each other. Keep it safe if we want to co-mediate.
Right.
There's one more thing I'd like to mention, which is the possibility of doing a very large piece of work, or maybe something that we haven't done before. And I've certainly had occasion where I've paired up with a peer that's made that possible, both in terms of imagination and manpower.
And just to wind it up, because I know we're running out of time here, is all of the things that everybody has said here really fits into the ConRes theme. There's another story to tell, because really working with each other is really helps to remain open and curious to new perspectives and other perspectives. And that fits really well into the theme of this week's ConRes. Or this year's ConRes, sorry.